to the show with your friend and mine. So tell me, Dr. Squee, who's it gonna be this time? We like to hear you talk, and we love to hear you listen. And if you are not subscribed, you won't know what you're missing. So welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. Headphones up, here we go.
Hello and welcome to the Dr. Squee Show. My guest tonight is running just a little bit late, it would appear. I've checked the link that I sent him the correct one, first of all, and that we got the time and date correct. It seems that everything is correct. These things happen sometimes with the power of live. My guest tonight is going to be the Right Honourable Lord Mayor of Cardiff himself, Councillor Rod McKerlich. And I'm sure with an office like the Lord Mayor of Cardiff, that would keep him busy. We are hoping to bring you the interview very soon. But as I say, these things happen with live streaming. So just to give a quick shout out while we're waiting for the Lord Mayor, this is brought to you by SW20 Radio. As all these interviews are, you can catch the radio version of this interview later on SW20 Radio. That's Tuesday at 6 o'clock. And each week we've got another fantastic guest. We're trying to dial up the Welsh content at the moment, being a Welsh radio station that we're going out on, but all of these fantastic celebrities, whether you're in Wales or not, and it's going to be a great time, hopefully, talking to the Mayor soon. So just to plug the show a bit more, the Dr. Squee Show, sw20radio.co.uk, Tuesdays 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. UK time, and check out your local times. You can download the app or go to sw20radio.co.uk, as I say. Hopefully the Mayor will be with us just momentarily. What else can I tell you? Of course, on the radio version, not only do you get me talking like I am doing to you now, but also you'll get loads of great features which are only included on the radio show, such as songs which we can't include on the stream for rights reasons, and exclusive content such as we often have questions for the week and different content like that. We have interviews with loads of different people we've got coming up. I can tell you a little bit. We've got Greg Proops happening soon. Oh, and I believe my guest may just be here now. I'm just going to give him a second before I introduce him again. But we now have the Right Honourable Lord Mayor of Cardiff himself, Councillor Rod McKerlich. Please welcome to the show. How are you doing, Rod?
I had a few teething problems getting in.
No problem at all. I just started without you because if we don't go live at the correct time, Facebook removes the link.
Okay.
Are you well tonight?
I beg your pardon?
Are you well tonight? Can you hear me okay?
Yes, fine, absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you very much for making time in your busy schedule for us.
No, it's a pleasure.
So, Lord Mayor, I was wondering if, first of all, you could talk a bit about the fact that you come from Perth, Scotland, originally. What brought you first to Cardiff?
Well, like many Scots, there are not a lot of jobs in Scotland, and many professional people have to leave Scotland to find a job. I worked in the paper and packaging industry, originally in Essex, and I came to what I thought was an attractive job in Wales, not knowing a great deal about Wales, but nearly 50 years later, we're still here. So the business did well, and we all enjoyed Cardiff.
I take it, yeah, your current office may have taught you a thing a bit or two extra about Wales.
Yes, Cardiff is a lovely city, and I was at Edinburgh University, so I like Edinburgh as a city, and Cardiff has a great deal in common. It's multicultural, multi-ethnic, and everyone lives together very nicely. There are a lot of cultural opportunities, good schools, close to beaches, close to mountains, plenty of golf courses. It's a lovely city.
Yeah, I'd agree. It has a lot in common with Edinburgh. And where did your journey begin to becoming the Lord Mayor?
Well, I worked, as I said, in the paper and packaging industry. And when it came time to retire, I felt that my brain wasn't ready just to pack it in. So I stood for election as a county councillor. And in 2008, I was elected. So I've been a member of the Cardiff County Council for something like 14 years, and I've sat on numerous committees. It's been a great joy. There's only one slight shadow on the joy, which is that I've spent 14 years in opposition and never had a chance to actually do anything.
Yeah, that can be painful.
Well, it is. It's particularly if one comes from a background in industry where I had the capacity to handle budgets and look after staff and formulate policies. And it's a different type of joy to just criticize other people's policies. I think I would have liked the opportunity to formulate a few of my own.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. It's actually quite refreshing to hear because my dad was the mayor of my local town when I was growing up in Romsey, a small market town here in England. And it's exactly the same path of just sitting on councils, going through different offices, getting involved in different things. And that's really how you get to an office like the mayor.
Yes, of course, there are two types of mayor. There is a type of mayor who is ceremonial and a figurehead, chairs council meetings and represents the council at honorific and other events. But then, as in, for instance, Bristol, they have a mayor who has an executive authority, and there is a difference, considerable difference.
Yeah. And what were your priorities when you first took on the mantle of mayor?
Well, to a large extent, the office defines the opportunities for you. As I said, the post is a ceremonial one. So I think that the first priority is to represent the Cardiff Council to the citizens of Cardiff. Many people in Cardiff don't realise the vast range of services provided by Cardiff Council, and they only tend to get in touch with or in contact with people from Cardiff Council when something is going wrong. If they can't get their child into the school they want, if there's a hole in the road, if the rubbish isn't collected, there's any number of reasons why people get in touch with Cardiff Council. It's almost invariably a sign of dissatisfaction. Now, the job of being the mayor, I think, is to represent Cardiff as being the visible face of Cardiff to its many citizens, and to tell them about the wonderful things that Cardiff does for them and the wonderful opportunities Cardiff makes available to them. And we meet a lot of people from all sorts of backgrounds, ethnic, religious, political, and they normally meet me with a smile on their face, which is not always the case when you're trying to explain to someone why their kid is not going to get into the school they want because it's full and you can't manufacture an additional place. So
yeah,
the first thing one does is represent the council. The second thing is that you chair council meetings, which can be a testing experience, but they've been very kind to me and I haven't really had any problems.
If I might just touch on a couple of things you raised there. So one is the ceremonial duties of the mayor. How do you feel about, like, are you comfortable in front of crowds and speaking to large audiences and representing Cardiff in that way?
Well, you have to be conscious of the fact that there is a ceremonial purpose to it, and many of the ceremonies are rather ancient, and it would be invidious to start deciding that one was going to drop some of them. I know that some of my predecessors as Lord Mayor were uneasy about anything to do with robes or swords. But, you know, even the chain which one wears, it's got a practical function. In the olden days, and Cardiff is a comparatively new city, but places like York and London, the function of mayor goes back 1,000 years. And the chain with which one is equipped is a visible symbol that one is the representative of the throne. And in tempestuous times, the mayor could go to a local barracks and produce this chain and say, there is a civil disturbance or there is an invasion, there is an issue I want you to deal with, and this chain is the symbol that I'm entitled to ask you to do it. So if one is conscious of the history of the ceremony, it doesn't become just a plaything. It's an important part of the history of the office.
And was the sword as a backup in case the chain didn't work?
Yes, yes, surely.
You mentioned there also about the diverse nature of Cardiff and the wonderful, all-encompassing, welcoming place that it is. Perhaps you could touch a bit upon all the communities you got to meet as Lord Mayor.
Well, I think that what perhaps typifies it is that during the week when we were doing Remembrance Day parades, there was one particular day when we attended a remembrance parade in a cemetery in Cardiff, and it was attended by 2 local schools, as well as a large number of veterans and relatives of veterans. And one school was a school which was taught through the medium of English, one was taught through the medium of Welsh, and there was a service attached to it, which was a Church in Wales service. And it was a very moving occasion where the children contributed a great deal, as did the veterans and their relatives. But later that day, we went to a mosque, and we were in the company of around 500 Muslims who were doing a different service, but they were very keen to come up and talk to us about what Cardiff meant for them. And they also made a pretty sizable contribution to my Lord Mayor's charity. And later that night, we went to Cardiff University, where there was a Diwali service for Sikhs and Hindus. Now that just typifies the way that Cardiff is. And I could remember it from my time playing hockey. In our hockey team, there were English, Irish, Welsh and Scottish, but there were also Sikhs and Muslims and people of other different religions and ethnicity. Cardiff is a wonderful place where people of different religions and different skin colours all mix and live together happily, which is great.
Yeah, and I know I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my wonderful friends on the LGBTQ spectrum, if that's the correct term, but the wonderful representation in Wales of different sexualities and different choices in that way.
Sure.
Yeah. So, what in the time of pardon me, in the times of COVID, what have been the biggest challenges, do you think, for the people of the city?
What do I think is important for the future of the city?
Oh, no, sorry. What have been the challenges during COVID times for the people of the city?
Oh, well, look, everyone has had an awkward time during the pandemic. I guess the thing which the Welsh would identify as being a particular challenge is that they were deprived of the opportunity of watching live rugby, which is, sport in general is very important to the Welsh, but rugby is verging on being a religion, if one might be slightly disrespectful. And being unable to go and watch it is a huge deprivation. And of course, it's got an impact on the commercial life of the city, because hotels, restaurants, shops, they all suffered at that time. So I think that Cardiff had problems in common with every other city in the United Kingdom, but it had that additional dimension, and that must have been fairly tough to take.
Oh, Amy, one of my friends from a radio station, just put rugby is amazing in Wales, such a fantastic atmosphere, which I'd agree. I've been there a few times when a game's been on, and it's just electric in Cardiff. It
is. I mean, I've been fortunate to attend matches in Twickenham and in my youth matches at Murrayfield, and now I've attended a lot of club rugby in Wales, but also internationals. I think the club rugby at its peak in Wales is fantastic. The crowds tend to be quieter, but they're very knowledgeable, and they tend to applaud both sides. And it's a joy to go to watch big club rugby matches in Wales. But the internationals, they're something different. When you hear 80,000 people singing their songs in support of the team and singing the Welsh national anthem, it makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. And I know that one of the early matches I watched was the Rugby International, which included the Scots. And some of the people playing for Scotland were people I knew from my time at university. And in the opening seconds of the game, there was a free kick went up, and 2 Scots people, such was the noise, they didn't hear one another calling for it. So they ran into one another, and the ball went free, and Wales had scored a try in the opening minutes. And you could say that the Welsh crowd made that try rather than just simply being the efforts of the Welsh team. It's quite unique in terms of atmosphere and noise.
Yeah, and I don't mean to do raise one sport to lower another. However, I do find the atmosphere around rugby usually manages to keep it civil, and it sidesteps these mistakes which some football fans unfortunately make. And I think that's something wonderful and something to be proud of for that sport.
Yeah, it's I mean, in Wales, it was very much a working class game.
Yeah.
Which was quite unique, because in England it was very much a public school and grammar school game, and in Scotland it was a bit of a mixture. There were the teams in the borders where the people who played tended to be mill workers, factory workers, and miners. But then there were the big teams in Edinburgh and Glasgow, where they were by and large products of public schools or grammar schools. And when they put the team together, it wouldn't be unusual to see that the three quarters and halfbacks were from one stratum of society, whereas the guys up front doing the grunt work were chaps who had to work for a living. But they coexisted. Now, in Wales, it had a different driver, and that's perhaps why it's so close to the hearts of the population.
Yeah, and I think you can tell when you go to Wales. Whenever I'm in Cardiff, I absolutely love the atmosphere. It's almost like no one would put themselves above someone else. There's a very great community, as you say. It's everyone's equal in the community, it feels.
That's right. They're prepared to throw their beer over anyone.
Yeah, exactly. Much better atmosphere to have. We've touched upon sports there. You're a very sporting person, I know yourself, having been involved in local hockey, golf, tennis, cricket. Do you still find much time to get involved?
I still play golf. I'm still a member of the local tennis club, but it must be 4 or 5 years since I last played. My main sport was hockey, where I would claim to have reached a reasonable standard. I didn't quite get to the Scotland side, but I was on the fringe, and I captained Cardiff Hockey Club. When I joined the local tennis club, I became the treasurer, and pointed out that we needed to raise some money and improve the facilities, and we set about raising the money. So I think becoming chairman of the tennis club was more a recognition of my financial skills than my tennis standard. And I think when I joined the golf club, it wasn't too much different. I think the lowest handicap I ever got down to was 16 or 17. So for a golf club captain, that's a pretty modest standard. On the other hand, while I was on the committee, we spent a lot of capital and improved the place dramatically. So, everyone contributes in their own way.
Certainly. And we've spoken a little bit about the effect on the people of sport in Cardiff. What does it do for the city to have such a vibrant sporting scene, though?
I think it has got a vibrant sporting scene, soccer and rugby and lots of other more minority sports, but it's also got a tremendous cultural scene. And again, I would point out the comparison with Edinburgh. I mean, for a comparatively small city, it's got access to good opera, good serious music. It's also got venues for pop music and comedy. There is the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama, which we've been going there for 30 odd years, and it has just completely changed its standards. They've always been good performers, but they're now good actors and they're all-round performers. And we've had the joy of seeing some of them go on to be parts of professional opera companies and also professional actors. So with St David's Hall, the Royal Welsh College, the Wills Millennium Centre, the New Theatre, and lots of other more minor venues, Cardiff's got a tremendous cultural scene, but it's also got, as you already said, a lot of good sport. And then there are wonderful parks, and there's Cardiff Castle. There are National Trust properties all around. There is something for everyone in Cardiff. I'm always quite surprised that it's not a greater tourist attraction. We get our fair share of tourists, but when I compare the offer in Cardiff to the offer of other UK cities and also the offer in European cities, and even further afield. Cardiff comes up level with most of them.
Yeah, and I think it does it in a wonderful way whilst keeping it feeling like a community feel. It doesn't, like London can feel overwhelming almost, whereas Cardiff, you feel like you can go around it easily, you can work your way around it, but you could go there so many times and not do the same thing twice.
You're exactly right. And I think perhaps we're too modest to make more of that, because I think that sometimes when people come here, they should be given a map and a list of all the attractions that are available and a suggestion as to how much time they really need to fully enjoy them. And I think that it would be easy to spend 2 weeks in Cardiff, but certainly 1 week. And the average stay of a holidaymaker coming to Cardiff is 1 or 2 nights. It just doesn't do justice to what's available. So I think we should perhaps be less modest and big it up.
Definitely, definitely. And for yourself, what would be your pitch for a great night out in Cardiff?
Well, I'm not as young as many of the holidaymakers might be who come here. So I think I would say that my great night out would be going to one of the venues I've named: St David's Hall, Wales Millennium Centre, the Royal Welsh College, or the New Theatre, or one of the small comedy venues or cabaret venues. Also, vying with that, there are lots of lovely restaurants in Cardiff with all different types of food available. So I think that at my time of life, I would be aiming for a good meal or a visit to a centre of the performing arts. But I've got a grandson who's now at university in Cardiff, and he finds plenty of nightclubs to enjoy. And there are lots of good pubs as well. And the prices are less frightening than you would encounter in London. So I think there's something for everyone.
Yeah, I went into one pub, it was about a year ago in Cardiff, and I found a pint for under £2. That seemed more like a challenge than a pricing policy.
Well, of course, being a young man, £2 strikes you as being a pretty good price. But I can remember when a pint of bitter cost 7p.
I do remember when you could get a pint for 150, but that wasn't yesterday, let's just say.
When I was a student, the maximum student grant you could get was £300 a year. And if you choose to squander it all on beer, you could buy something like 4,000 pints.
And in all fairness, the price of university was a little better then too.
Yes. Yeah.
Something which we talked about a bit about your history in politics. And as again, my dad was a local councillor. When he became mayor, one thing I was most proud of is the fact that he kept the office completely unpolitical. He just represented his town. And I know you do the same in Cardiff. How do you ensure that you represent all the people of such a big and diverse city?
Well, I sat on a large number of committees when I was a more active politician. But when I became Lord Mayor, I resigned from all the committees of which I was a member. And I told the group of which I was a member that I would not be attending any further meetings except when the agenda was something which was politically neutral. And I haven't done any canvassing or been overtly political in any way throughout the year. And I think when you're chairing a meeting, you want to be certain that everyone who's speaking in the meeting or even disagreeing in the meeting feels that you are chairing the meeting equitably and you have not pre-committed yourself to any party or any particular viewpoint. Your father was entirely right, and I'm sure if you've been in politics long enough, you've seen examples where people have been manipulative, and you know that it's wrong, so you know how to avoid doing it.
And I think it's always very important, even if you are in a political office at the time, to remember that you're still a representative of the place in which you're in and which the place you're a representative of. So I think it's a wonderful thing to do.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think if people think beyond question time in the Houses of Parliament and stop acting as if they are the kind of politicians who perform on Prime Minister's question time, if you look at the emails and correspondence and phone calls you get from your residents, I get a pretty big email bag per day, and it might be 80 or 90 emails plus other correspondence. But if I look through them, It's people who are asking me about problems they've got interfacing with Cardiff Council, which has got something like 15,000 employees and provides something like 800 different services. It's not easy for an ordinary member of the public to get in touch for help with one of these services. But if you look at your postbag and realise it's all about schools and roads and the rubbish collection, no one gets in touch to ask your opinion on Brexit or what we should do to combat President Putin's potential adventures into the Ukraine. No one's ever asked me about any of these things. If you look at what people are asking you, who are your constituents, that should teach you to keep your feet on the ground and deal with the problems which are your area of expertise.
Yeah, and however these things, these political decisions go, there's still people who need representing and need best to be served by what happens after these political decisions are made. So you still have to make sure the roads are running, that they don't have potholes in it, that the trash is taken out. These are really important things to people that after the politics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So one thing which I did want to ask you about is your nominated charity as mayor is the Alzheimer's Society Cymru, and tell us a bit about that and why you chose that as your charity.
Well, I guess I've got a personal involvement because my father, for the last 2 years of his life, suffered from dementia. My mother would go and visit him once or twice a day, and when we were in Scotland, I would go with her. He at no stage recognised her, and we could communicate with him by singing old Scottish songs like the Northern Lights of Old Aberdeen and Donald, Where's Your Trousers? So there were things which he could remember, and he wanted to engage with us over these areas. But as for recognising his son or his wife, he couldn't do it. So that certainly makes you strongly aware personally of things which you were aware of beforehand. And since we took it as our charity, and even before that, in any company you are, where you mention the Alzheimer's and the work they do, you almost invariably find a high percentage of those present nodding their heads and shaking and saying, I know exactly what you mean, because one of my family is in that condition, or one of my neighbours is, or one of my friends is. It's something which touches most people, and even the ones who are not touched by it might consider the possibility that when they get older, they might be. So raising money to help support people who are touched by dementia or Alzheimer's, raising money to help support the carers who look after them, who are absolutely crucial, because if a carer becomes ill, then both the carer and the Alzheimer's sufferer have got problems. And then also to try and fund research into ways in which we can get to grips with the mechanism of the brain and reduce the incidence of this. Now, it was very much in our thoughts before we took on Alzheimer's Cymru as a charity. But while we've been doing it, we've become very conscious of the fact that the last year has been one where charities have got greater need of their work in raising money, but it's been a tough year for raising money. So very glad for anything we can do for this very worthwhile cause.
And it sounds like you're doing amazing work working with that charity. It must have been really difficult as well during this last year or two, where we have been going through lockdowns and other kind of such impingements on what we're able to do. How have you been able to keep up with events? Have you done a lot of virtual things like this?
It's been a bit of a mixture. My reign in as Lord Mayor was increased from 12 months to, which it normally is, to 18 months. And when I just took on the job, it was pretty quiet for a while because there was a very intense period of lockdown. And then we climbed back to what would approach normality and had a pretty good run up to December of last year. But then in December, when Omicron appeared on the scene, once again, events started being cancelled right, left and centre. And they're now starting again. But the big formal events like dinner dances and formal dinners, they take quite a lot of organisation, and you cannot just turn around and decide you're going to have a big formal dinner. You have to arrange the venue, arrange the menu, arrange the speakers, sell the tickets. So these have never recovered to the previous level, which I guess could be a blessing for my waistline and the waistline of my wife. But I think we could tolerate that deprivation of having to sit and eat food and drink wine. But it's also tough for my charity, because in the nature of things normally, when you're sitting at a table with people enjoying themselves, and you find out that they happen to be a director of a company which has got funds which are available for charity, you do get the opportunity of expressing the immense good work they could do as they contributed something to my charity. So I think the charity has suffered a little bit, just as my waistline has suffered from my inability to put my case as often as I might otherwise have done.
So we would encourage everyone to donate to Alzheimer's Society, Cymru. Give whatever you can. All charities need the help at this time more than any other, perhaps within my lifetime at very least. One thing I would say, sir, is that I usually get to sort of represent Wales from afar here in Southampton, where I'm based, and just visit Cardiff as much as I can. And last time I was there, I was very impressed by how the city has bounced back as we're slowly coming out of COVID times. It must be really something that's very great to see in your position, to see the city return back to normal a bit at a time.
Yeah. Well, as I said to you, my role is mainly ceremonial, but I do know what the ruling party and the cabinet and the officers of Cardiff are doing to try and help people to get through the problems arising from the pandemic. And I think, I may say it on a non-political basis,
yep.
But the ruling party is not the party of which I was elected to serve, but they've done a really good job in very tough circumstances. And I think the people of Cardiff have every reason to be grateful for them.
That is an amazing note to start to go towards the end of this interview. Sir, I would like, if you wouldn't mind, just to nominate a bit of music for me to play when this goes out on the radio, on SW20 Radio, the new sound of South Wales.
Well, I will not inflict a Scottish song like Donald Where's Your Trousers upon your audience. I would like you to play American Pie by Don McLean, which is one of my wife's favourites, and I regularly come into the house to hear it being played by the automatic machine. So,
Lord Mayor, if you're very lucky,
American Pie.
Lord Mayor, if you're very lucky, I might do a double bill with Donald Where's Your Trousers, just because why not? That's a fantastic tune.
Okay.
Sir, but just before I let you go, would you mind just quickly doing a little bumper for our radio show station?
Surely.
Just your name, and you're listening to SW20 Radio, the new sound of South Wales.
My name is Rod McKerlich. I'm the Lord Mayor of Cardiff, and you are listening to SW33. Is that it?
SW20 Radio, sorry.
Exactly.
The new sound of South Wales. Pardon me, sir. Sorry, I should have.
On the Dr. Squee show. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be wonderful if you could check that in.
Okay. What would you like me to do?
Could you just read out? And you're listening to SW20 Radio.
You're listening to SW20 Radio, the Dr. Squee show. I am Rod McKerlich, and I am the current Lord Mayor of the City and County of Cardiff.
Perfect, sir. Thank you. Sorry, I should have given you that in advance. Thank you very much for your time and in your busy schedule for sparing this time for us.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Rod McKerlich, the Lord Mayor of Cardiff. Thank you very much for watching this special Dr. Squee show. I've been Dr. Squee. That was my show. And in a world where you can be anything, please be kind. just before we go, a huge thank you to Paula at the Lord Mayor's office, as well as to the Lord Mayor for making time for us tonight. You can listen to this interview all again with added music and lots of added features Tuesday, 6 o'clock, sw20radio.co.uk. Thank you.